All right, guys. Next up, we've got this is a point I've really been looking forward to tonight. Melissa, a friend of ours, Melissa, she's actually on the Drumathon committee, and her daughter is Peyton Taylor. You guys might be familiar with her. Peyton's a female drummer out of Dallas, Texas, and she's been supporting breast cancer since 2013. She comes out to all of our events and plays, raises funds. She's been one of the top 3 fundraisers the first 2 years in Drumathon, and I'm sure she'll continue with that every year. Melissa introduced me to a couple, John and Clare Davis, out of Keller, Texas, and I've really, being on this broadcast it can be stressful as a breast cancer survivor, telling things very personal, and things like that. And the previous 2 guests are kind of on the other side of their breast cancer. And I'm really happy to have John and Clare Davis join us here in just a second. Clare is currently in the thick of her battle. And guys, this is what we need everybody to understand. This is what you guys need to see. Everybody needs to learn about it, understand, and see why it is so important for us to be a part of the solution and contribute when we can to finding a cure, helping people going through triple-negative breast cancer. So this is going to be a really important segment for us here. John and Clare Davis will be joining, and Clare's got stage 4 breast cancer. And you guys are ready here? Okay, it sounds like they're ready to join, guys. Welcome, John and Clare Davis, to the broadcast. Hey, guys. I think we're getting the audio on there. Let me see if I can hear you. Hey guys, there you are. Good.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, thank you so much for joining. I kind of was giving everybody a little bit of information about you guys and how we got connected through Melissa and Peyton, and just kind of what you've been going through. I know we got an opportunity to chat some yesterday, and I want to thank you guys again for joining today. I think that your story is literally the most important story we're going to hear tonight. People really need to understand triple-negative breast cancer, what you guys are going through, how this has changed you, and how this is affecting you guys. So I wonder, guys, could you take us back to before, I guess it was before 2011, before Clare was ever diagnosed, and what led up to that? How did this all get started?
Well, I was very healthy, and I was working out with a personal trainer because I was about to go on a cruise, and I was sore everywhere. I think the guy was really trying to kill me, like personal trainers do.
Right.
And I just was kind of feeling around here, and I felt this knot, and I thought, oh, I've torn a muscle. And so I mentioned it to John. He's like, I think you should go to the doctor. I don't think that's a muscle. So I mentioned it to my trainer, and he's like, no, Claire, I think you probably ought to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor. Maybe it was about 5 o'clock one evening, and she immediately herself started making calls to get me into Radiology Associates so that I could have a biopsy.
Actually, it was a diagnostic mammogram.
Diagnostic mammogram. And I had just had a mammogram back in, I think it was October.
November, October, yep.
And it was clean. So she got me in at 8 o'clock that next morning, which was funny because it was a snow day. And our daughter was at school. She was
at home.
She was at home, and she was about 8 at the time. So we ran over, in the ice to Radiology Associates, and they did the diagnostic mammogram. And then the radiologist, I guess the lady who reads the reports, said, well, I think we need to do a biopsy. But because you're on fish oil and aspirin, it'll bleed and it'll bruise. So let's just hold off for a week. Don't take your fish oil and aspirin. So we're on the way back home, and my doctor called. And she said, we are not waiting a week. Who cares if it bleeds? No one's going to see it, or if it bruises. So she had already got us set up with this person to do a biopsy at North Hills Hospital.
A breast surgeon.
A breast surgeon. And we went, I think, the next day, and they biopsied it, and then they confirmed it that it was Triple negative breast cancer, stage 1. When she called, I was in Nordstrom buying clothes. Amber alert.
I'm getting it too.
Sorry.
I had my phone muted though. All of us are looking at our phones right now. Sorry about that. Those of you outside of Texas, everybody, we have a Amber Alerts on our phone. So sorry about that. Go ahead, Claire.
Oh, so anyway, so she biopsied it, and then she called me the next morning. I was at Nordstrom having a blast with one of my best friends, and we sat in the dressing room and just bawled. And then I drove home, and John, I think he came home to meet me, and then I guess we got set up with our oncologist. We started making calls, and one of the first people I called was a client of mine is Baylor, and I called a friend at Baylor, and I said, "Who do you know? Like who's the best person you know?" And he said, "You should talk to this woman named Norma, who is on his team, and because she also has breast cancer, and she will be able to guide you." So I talked to her, who recently, she passed 2 weeks ago from breast cancer, and she recommended what I call the dream team. Maybe it's the same people that your previous guest had, but Dr. Grant and Dr. Carpenter at Baylor Dallas. And we met with them and decided that we would do a full-on mastectomy because I have an 8-year-old. She's adopted, and I'm thinking, God, why did you do this? I mean, you chose us to be your parents, and now you've given me cancer. So we went with Dr. Grant, and he did a bilateral mastectomy, and then I followed up with ACT, which is pretty common.
Right.
I had 4 months of the dose-dense chemo, and then I got my reconstructive surgery back in that November. So, within a year's time frame, it was kind of done.
Right.
And we thought it was done.
And we thought it was done.
Right, and just to recap, if you joined late, Claire was diagnosed with stage 1 triple negative breast cancer back in 2011, and we're reliving that with her. And man, you said that about being at Nordstrom, and I was just like, gosh, I can't imagine. I was at home by myself, so I was glad that I wasn't out somewhere. I can only imagine going from being elated, you're out there with your friend, you're having a great time shopping. I mean, what's better than that, really? And then you get that call. It's just got to be a shock to your system. But you went through, you did the adriamycin, Cytoxan, Taxol, like most all of us here that have been on the broadcast tonight have done as triple negative breast cancer survivors. You had the double mastectomy. I believe everybody who's joined tonight, I think we only had one person that's joining tonight that didn't have a double mastectomy. You went the full deal. You did everything. You did everything you needed to do. Double mastectomy, all the chemo, everything, right?
Everything.
Yeah.
I didn't have any lymph node involvement, so I didn't have to have radiation.
Right. You were 1A, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So by the time you're finished with all of that treatment, it's probably what the end of 2011 about?
It was November. It was actually 11/11/11, and we had to be there at 11 for the reconstructive surgery.
How funny. Wow.
It was funny.
So you guys thought that was the end of it, right?
We did.
We did.
We were told, triple negative typically comes back in 6 months. It's pretty aggressive usually. 2 years and you're usually golden, and we cleared 6 months and we felt pretty good, and then we cleared 2 years and we felt really good. We were 6 months shy of 5 years. 6 months shy of 5 years.
And tell us take us back. Tell us what happened then.
Well, 5 years is is golden. If you make 5 years at this, they typically say you're cured. And Claire started having some issues fall of 2015, just fatigue and coughing a lot and all this stuff. And we actually went to Colorado, and we were going to climb a 14,000-foot peak.
Wow.
And my daughter and I actually made it, and Claire got pretty high up, and she said, I just can't go anymore. And this was in August of 2015, and unbeknownst to us at the time, she's carrying lung cancer around, or breast cancer in her lung.
Well, between 2011 and this point, were you going? Did you have? Do you see your oncologist regularly, like every 6 months, every 3 months? What was it?
Yes.
And what did they do at those appointments?
They would take my tumor markers, and they were always, even throughout all of the first bout of breast cancer, they were always below the norm, my tumor markers. But they would take my tumor markers and they would do examinations, and everything was good to go.
Right.
And so then when I went in, in 2015, I was just so fatigued. I just can't even describe how tired I was all the time. But I didn't think it was cancer. I thought I was just tired.
Right.
And then when I went in, they did my tumor markers, and they were elevated. I can't remember what they...
I want to say they were like in the 50s.
Yeah. And like, what was the between that time that they did that test and the previous one, it had to be a year or less, right?
No, it was 6 months.
Yeah.
It was 6 months.
So in that 6 month time frame, you went from low and everything's looking good to all of a sudden they're elevated, right?
Yeah. So they called me and they said, well, your tumor markers are elevated, and it could just be that you've got an inflammation somewhere in your body, but we want to go ahead and do a...
They want to do a PET scan.
They wanted to do a PET scan, but insurance wouldn't approve a PET scan. So they did the CT scan. And then when they did the CT scan, they found that it was in my pelvic bone, my lung, and my pulmonary lymph nodes. And so it had metastasized. They confirmed that it was the same cancer. And we got the call maybe at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and we just bawled.
Yeah.
We just cried a long time.
Yeah. So what do you do next?
Well, so next, we met up with the oncologist, and they decided to put me on a carboplatin Gemzar treatment, and it's a combination of 2 chemos. And so we started that, and it was working. The side effects were pretty nasty, lots of nausea and indigestion kind of issues. But I was tolerating it pretty good, although I would say I missed a ton of treatments because of my blood counts. My white blood cell counts would get too low, and my ANCs would get too low, so then they wouldn't treat me.
Right.
Because I was supposed to be on...
You were supposed to go carbo Gemzar for 3 weeks, and then off. And then she was going to go... so that was supposed to repeat every time, but what they ended up doing was doing carbo Gemzar off, and then carbo Gemzar. So that's all she could take. That's all her blood would allow us to do. But we were still having good results. I mean, we were showing good results with it. It was well managed,
right?
And well managed through probably June of 2016. So almost 8-9 months. It was pretty well managed, and then the markers went elevated again.
And then when they went elevated again,
they did a CT scan.
Well, yes, they did another CT scan, and they showed that it was growing again in my lung and in my lymph nodes. And so we decided to switch up chemo, and Dr. O'Shaughnessy was running a clinical trial, and she's like the bomb.
Right.
She was your doctor.
She's the rock star triple negative breast cancer chick, yeah.
Yeah, and so she and my doctor are mentors, friends, also part of Texas Oncology. And so they offered up this trial, and it only could be taken advantage of at this point because I could only have had one advanced chemotherapy, which I had just been off the carboplatin Gemzar. So we decided, why not? Let's go for it. So it was a combination of Taxol and alisertib, which is it was a pill, and they had me taking the pill 4 times a day.
No, 4 pills 2 times a day.
4 pills 2 times a day. I don't know how I could forget. But the pill really messed with my esophagus. It created mouth sores in my esophagus, acid reflux, tons of indigestion. It was just pretty hard. So then they would reduce it from 4 to 3, and then from 3 to 2. And then, it got so bad on January 2nd, John had to take me to the ER because I thought I was having a heart attack.
And that's January 2nd of this year now?
Yes.
This
yes.
year.
I mean, just 2 months ago today.
Yes.
Just too much. And so we went to the ER and everything else was fine. They gave me some heavy drugs, and they really helped. Morphine, yeah. And
Yeah.
that really helped.
How could you forget morphine? It's like the best stuff ever when you're sick. No.
So anyway, we got that, and that helped a lot. And then I kept having these headaches, and my back, like right in here, just really hurt. I mean, like we're talking level 10 pain. And I remember one Monday I had gone to work, probably overdone it a bit, and I was in so much pain. I would soak in Epsom salts. I had this soft little rice thing I would put on my neck.
Heat it up.
I mean, I would just do anything to try to get rid of this pain. And finally, I just broke down. I mean, had an epic meltdown, hour and a half, crying hysterically. Just, I cannot take this. It's just so intense. So the very next morning at 8 o'clock, I called the nurse and I said, I don't know what's wrong, but something is not right here. And she called back in 30 minutes and she said, we've got you set up for an MRI at 4 o'clock, and you go over to Baylor Hospital and get that MRI. And then the next morning they had me set up for a CT scan at like 10 o'clock. And so we did that. By 8 o'clock that next morning, I had the MRI, which took 2 hours of pounding. I had no idea what an MRI was, but boy, I'm asking for a Valium next time.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Yeah, MRIs are no fun, man.
My gosh, I had no idea. And so then, I'm sorry, I lose my train of thought with this radiation
Hey,
stuff.
man, we can all blame it on Kibo Brain here today.
So at 8 o'clock the next morning, I was driving my daughter to school, and the doctor called. And she said, well, the news isn't good. And I said, oh, well, I've got Caitlin in the car. Can you call me back in 15 minutes? She said, absolutely. So I rushed back home. John's home working because he was going to take me to the CT scan. And she said, it has basically traveled to your brain and your spinal cord. And it was in all nodes, I guess, of my brain. But there seemed to be small.
Yeah, there were 6 or 7 small tumors, she called them. I think the biggest one may have been half an inch, maybe. But so she said that morning we would have, after the CT scan, immediately after the CT scan, we would meet with the radiation oncologist who was going to be at Grapevine that day. And so we went and had the CT scan, met with the radiation oncologist. She seemed pretty confident that she could take care of it with whole brain radiation. It would be 10 sessions, once a day for 10 days, weekends off. And that would start, I guess, the following Monday. This was a Wednesday. And they were also going to have to radiate the throat. And the concern was she couldn't come laterally because of where it was. She was going to have to come fore and aft. And that was going to eat up her esophagus pretty good.
Gosh.
And so the funny thing is they told us, oh, you're going to lose your hair and you're going to have this major sore throat. So we got cough drops ready. We got all this stuff ready. And we made it through the 10 sessions and it was pretty okay. I mean, the hair was starting to come out a little bit, but it wasn't gone. and the throat was okay. In fact, that night after we finished, we went to Del Frisco's downtown Fort Worth, had a steak, and she could
That was
eat
the
it.
last one.
Yep. And then the following Wednesday, the throat just went whoosh, and she couldn't swallow, she couldn't eat, she couldn't hardly do anything. And then the hair started coming out, and I ended up taking my razor and shaving it down.
Right.
And my eyebrows have come out again.
Yeah.
But we won't know anything for 6 to 8 weeks on the whole brain radiation, because they have to wait and let all the swelling and inflammation come down in the brain before they can even do another MRI. So in 6 to 8 weeks, so sometime end of March or probably early April, we'll have another MRI with a Valium.
Yeah, for sure.
So
that's kind of where we are right now.
So what was the date? Because that was really recent that they found cancer in your brain, Claire. I mean, how long ago was that? That was
January 27th.
Yeah, that's still pretty fresh, huh?
And
Yes.
so, I mean, basically that happened that week. And then on Monday, I started the radiation. So I did the radiation for 2 weeks. And then I would say the last 2.5 weeks have been worse than the radiation, because I haven't been able to talk or swallow. I mean, I'm still to the point it takes me an hour to eat a chicken breast.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's just.
And she's got, and her I'm going to say this, but her brain's just gone.
It's gone.
The cognitive ability is gone for right now. And they actually put her on a med when she could swallow that they give to Alzheimer's patients, because it helps with dementia.
Right.
And supposedly it helps with this too, as there's been clinical trials that have shown that it's helped with radiation brain, if you want to call it that, instead of chemo. So
and I'm able to take pills within the last 3
couple of
days.
days, yeah.
So I'm taking my dementia pill, and I'm back on my Nexium, which is helping with some of the acid reflux and all that.
You know, I certainly haven't been through that. You know, I was stage 1, but you know, I remember before I started chemo, everybody's talking about chemo brain and everything, which is probably, you know, similar, you know, dementia and things like that. You know, I remember thinking, well, what do I care if I can't remember something? I won't realize it. You know, I mean, I just cruise along and I'll just be happy and I won't even notice. But the thing that sucks is, you know, like you're sitting there right now, Claire, and you know, there are certain things that you should think or remember or whatever, and you can't. I mean, it's really an awful feeling. Are you in pain right now? Do you have headaches or?
Yeah, I've got a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
But I took some liquid Vicodin, maybe about 5, and that helps. Because they had to give me the liquid because I couldn't swallow a pill.
Right.
So
Literally, she couldn't even swallow a small pill. Nothing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's almost like anything that other folks maybe went through, it's just exaggerated with the treatment that you're having, because you know, you can get, like, I remember I got a few mouth sores and stuff from chemo. Of course, I haven't been through near what you've gone through, Claire, but you know, it's like all those things are just exaggerated because the treatment is so severe, because the cancer it's just spread so much, and they're just trying to get a handle on it. So is everything that you guys are doing now, is it all part of a clinical trial?
not anymore.
Yeah.
So we're waiting right now to figure out what the next. She had a plan to start another chemo. It's actually a pill form chemo. Something I learned recently that I didn't know was that chemos typically don't go to the brain. There's a blood-brain barrier, and they don't go to the brain. Your brain has a way to basically block the poison and keep it from going there. But there are some that actually can kind of get there. And one of the ones that they're talking about using is called Xeloda, and it's a pill form chemo. And I think she's going to do a week on, a week off. But if she can't swallow a pill, she can't start the chemo.
Right.
But supposedly Xeloda is actually one of the ones that can get to the brain some, and they want that because they want to be able to see if there's anything still left there that they might be able to clean it up with chemo. So the plan, we've met with her the past 2 Fridays. We won't meet with her tomorrow, but last Friday was determined that we would wait a couple of weeks. We're going to get through spring break. And so the 20th of March, we'll go back and see our oncologist. And at that point in time, she'll see where we are and where she thinks we need to go. And if she can swallow, maybe we'll go to the Xeloda. If she can't swallow, they'll go back to maybe an IV form of a chemo. She's got options still. We're not down to our last bit, thankfully. So that's what we do.
Yeah, you just keep fighting, right? I mean, it's really all you can do until there's a cure, you know. I told you before, it just really means a lot to me that you guys came out here tonight and that you are sharing such a personal story. I mean, everybody's sharing personal stories, but what you guys are going through is very, very intense. And, you know, people need to understand that, you know, while a lot of times nowadays, you know, they can catch cancer very early and it's a lot more treatable than it used to be, that it still can be really bad. It's not, you know, cancer's cancer, man. It's the real deal. And it's important for people to remember that and see that and know that we need to be out there actively fighting this all the time. I mean, that's why that we're doing this today is, you know, the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation, that's what they're doing, man. They are raising funds to fight triple negative breast cancer. And it's, you know, from personal experience, it's seriously aggressive and something's got to be done to make a difference. And thankfully, you know, there's a lot of doctors out there working on it, but they need the funds to do it. And that's why we're all here today is raising funds to try to fight triple negative breast cancer and, you know, to help people just like you guys, you know, and make sure that you're going to be okay. And, John, I hope you'll keep in touch with me and Claire and, you know, let me know how you guys are doing and keep in touch on stuff and, you know, be praying for you and thinking about you. And we're just really thankful that you guys could join tonight. I hope everybody in the chat room will please show some love for John and Claire. Make sure you put a comment in there. Tell Claire how courageous she is for joining today. I mean, girl, you are a rock star, man. You know, it takes a lot of courage to come out here. Just, you know, I walked around bald too back when I did that, you know, when I had that going on. But, I mean, you are grabbing hold of every day, and I can tell that you're living every moment that you can and just grabbing hold of that, and you're fighting your tailbone off, and you're not going to just cave. You're going to keep fighting. So we're right there with you, okay? And I'm really thankful that you guys could make it today, and it was such a blessing to get introduced to you all.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.